Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, welcome to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio. I am your host, Rick Thompson. This show is about sobriety and recovery. Each week, we discuss a different topic relating to addiction with the aim that you can gain some insight, guidance, and hope from our discussions. We focus the show in 3 different segments. 1, the viewpoint of the families dealing with the family members suffering from alcoholism and addiction so they may assist them in obtaining treatment. 2, the psychological trauma and emotional damage alcoholics and addicts and their families experience. 3, the role of the insurance companies and associate providers and their part in the recovery process. Welcome to the broadcast. Tonight we have a very special guest in the studio, actually guests, Mr. Nick Perkins and Mr. Patrick LaRue. Nick got sober 8 years ago while doing time in the state correctional facility after battling untreated alcoholism and addiction all of his life. He gives back by speaking on panels in prisons and going down to Skid Row to encourage people struggling with the disease. And by passing on his message, he has hopes for them following his path and having a bright future without the influence of drugs or alcohol. Now the proud owner of Manifest Recovery, one of the most prestigious sober living homes in the Los Angeles area, Nick takes great pride in helping many fellow alcoholics and addicts achieve sobriety. Hello, Nick. Hello, Patrick. Welcome to the broadcast. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, Rick. How are you, sir?
Doing well.
Okay. Nick, I would like to start off and ask if you could share with us your personal story and background.
Yeah, I've been sober for about almost 8 years now. I guess I would start with, growing up. I grew up in a good home. My parents were divorced, but it wasn't like I, grew up in a crack house or anything. I grew up in a good home, played football, and I guess you could say in high school I started drinking and, recreationally smoking weed. What I did is I basically started, drinking on the weekends and stuff like that, and then slowly but surely it kind of spiraled and turned into me drinking too much or me using other drugs. Fast forward into I guess college area. At the time I guess I wasn't going to college, but because of the drugs and alcohol, but I ended up while all my friends were in college, I would be drinking and using drugs and getting out of control. By the age of 18, I actually blacked out at a frat party, sorority party, and I actually ended up going to jail. Didn't really remember what I did. Didn't really understand that I had a problem with drugs or alcohol. And at the time, my parents, kind of co-signed, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and all that good stuff. And
did a little bit of enabling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, enabling. And, that's one of the biggest things with parents today with, children suffering from, drug and alcohol addiction is, the enabling. We think, as parents, we want to help the child and, get them on the right track. But sometimes, cutting them off and not enabling them is the best thing to do. So, yes, I was enabled, the first time I really got in some big trouble. I ended up doing a year. I robbed somebody, didn't remember doing it, and I was blacked out. And
was this in jail or was this an actual penitentiary?
This was jail. I ended up doing what's called a county lid, and I ended up it was a full year. Got sentenced to a full year, and then I did a little bit over 9 months of good time for having good behavior in there. So it's called the county lid. So I didn't really realize at the time that I had any drug addiction or alcoholism. My dad is a recovering alcoholic, and I didn't really think that I was an alcoholic. So, fast forward, I moved to California. I'm doing mortgage and real estate at the time, and I'm doing opioids, the Norcos, So I get started with taking these opioids as a cure for a hangover, during the day because I'm drinking every night, partying, and I'm doing these, these Norcos, easily prescribed by doctors. If you just want them, the doctors were prescribing them to you. So I ended up doing these during the day, and then I got hooked to them, and then I'm doing mortgage and real estate. I'm doing phone sales back before the the crash. We were doing mortgage and real estate. I think I was 20 years old around that time, and I ended up going to jail, getting in trouble again. So every there's a lot of different signs, a lot of hospital visits, a lot of drunk driving while on these pills that I should have been incarcerated for all the times I'm putting others in danger by being on these pills or drunk driving. So I ended up going to jail for possession of cocaine. So back then I when the mortgage boom stopped, I started selling cocaine and doing it here and there to wake up off the opioids when we were partying, and I had a half a gram on me. Now back then it was a felony. Now it's a misdemeanor. So I ended up doing they wanted to give me another 36 months upstate, and I ended up doing I got a plea bargain for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So while I was in there, we were on 23-hour lockdown, and Theo Lacey in Orange County, and these Alcoholics Anonymous guys came in, and I would do anything to get out of my cell because it was a 23-hour lockdown.
Right.
So I ended up going to this panel, and these guys started talking about sobriety and masking your emotions through drugs and alcohol, and the whole building things up and breaking them down, and being destructive. And I started identifying with all the things the guy was saying on that panel. So I went back to my bunk and I started.
What was the first thing that you caught that you held on to that rung with you as far as where you were at?
I would say when he started speaking about building things, doing very well, because part of the alcohol, I've learned part of the addiction and alcoholism is that we as alcoholics and addicts, we build things up and become successful or do really well in our relationships and our job or whatever, and then we tear it all down. So when he mentioned that, I realized and identified with that, and realized that we had something in common. So, just like we were talking about before, it's not just, alcoholics and addicts aren't just, someone in a dark alley shooting dope, or
That's correct.
or a bum on the street. It's, your son, it's your neighbor, it's your daughter, it's your cousin, it's your uncle, it's
your doctor, it's your lawyer.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So,